In the previous video, I finally got the hydroplane boat to lift onto the planing surfaces and speed off. But there was one thing that was not letting me go much faster, and that was the rudder. It was too sensitive and caused too much trouble. So I decided to make an air rudder that would sit right behind the EDF. Now if you're new here, let me take you back about a year and a half. I really wanted to make a boat using this EDF. I used insulation foam as the mold for the fiberglass and resin, and it turned out very ugly, as you can see. So I decided to scrap that and build something much more nicer the right way. So this time I used a pipe that I found as the mold for the main body, and I 3D printed a bunch of the parts. After a few runs of trial and error, I finally got it to work, mostly, which brings us to today. I decided to use the air rudder because they're much less sensitive than water. The reason is because water is much more dense than air, about 830 times more. So I started to 3D print all the pieces needed to make this, and put it together. Apparently the motor was not good, which was odd because the day before I went out and tested it at full throttle and it was fine. But looking from the GoPro footage, you could see that it looks like the fan blade was not set in the exact middle, so it was vibrating, which caused part of the motor that holds the coil to break off from the mounting point. So that's quite unfortunate. A few weeks later, I bought myself another EDF unit, this time choosing a different model that is much more resistant to vibrations, even though it hurt my wallet a bit. So then I had to replace the connectors with different ones because the connectors on the motor controller were different. So after a bit of soldering, it was ready to be installed. Luckily it fit right into the existing mount, but the steering system was in the way. So for whatever reason, I decided to make it only a single air rudder system instead of two. Next thing I needed to do was make some sort of locks to keep the sponsons from moving on the wooden rods, since they were not glued, just press fitted. So I 3D printed these cylinder things that have a hole for the wooden dowel and this hole for the screws. So I installed them and now it was ready for testing. When I bought the new motor, it was slightly longer than the old, so because of that I moved the steering rudder back about 2 inches, and also changed it from double rudder to single rudder. So as you can imagine, the steering did not work at all, and it went straight into the tall grass next to the shore. After a while, my dad finally laid some logs in the water and used that as basically stepping stones to retrieve my boat. Big thanks to you, Dad. Unfortunately for you guys, I didn't record anything because my camera's battery was almost dead. So I printed the double rudder system again and attached it right behind the motor as close as possible before going to test it out. Before going to test it out though, I decided to replace the wooden dowels with carbon fiber arrows because these are much less brittle and more stronger. Okay, so we are almost ready with the boat. I have the new arrows here and they do not flex nearly as much. Now it still does move around because I'm going to put some silicone on the inside, not only to seal up the holes but to hold the arrows so they will not slide around like this. So that's all what I need to do. And for the steering in the back, I just need to connect the push rod from the servo to the rudders here. And then after that, I'll need to clean out the fan a little. You can kind of tell that there's a little bit of green inside from whenever it got stuck and we were trying to get it out, and we turned the throttle on and it sucked up a little bit of the grass, and so it's kind of dried up inside and on the servo as well. But that is basically it. You need to connect that, put some silicone inside to hold this in there, and I believe that will be everything, and then we can test it out. So it has not much steering. That's what I've noticed. It's not very good. We'll go over there with the drone and see what I can see, I guess. Okay. So the sponson, the left sponson looks like it's sinking. So yeah, the left sponson is it looks like it's kind of down a little bit. Okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put the camera down. I'm gonna use the tripod as like a stick or something so I can see if I can get it, and I have a rope with me. So yeah. Okay, I've got it. There's not that much water, surprisingly. That's inside the boat, but inside the sponson, you can see it's water leaking out. So that's unfortunate. Very unfortunate. Okay, so what happened at the lake was a couple of things. So the rudder, I believe it was working decently well. Of course, not as well as the actual rudder that was in the water before. I think this was working actually really well, but what really happened was this sponson started to leak in water. So I decided to 3D print this mount. You can kind of see it. And this is to put like a fin, to like a stabilizer fin that will just stick out in the water. It's basically a rudder, but it's fixed. And I didn't put in the screws, and so water got inside through there, and it was leaking out water from there. So all I need to do is just put a little bit of silicone inside there, and I think that will stop it from leaking. But I'm also just going to probably take off this, maybe. I'm probably going to put the rudder back on, but this time I'm going to shorten it by like half. So I'm just going to cut it about right here, and then just put that back where it was. So yeah, that's the plans, but I'm going to have to do that in the next video. So yeah, stay tuned for the next video.